Back in the airport, the 24/7 nature of the global economy becomes apparent. We can gauge how competitive we are from the difference between the cargo planes flying in with imports and those flying out with exports. A few years back, the ratio was almost 50-50, but now the incoming loads outnumber the outgoings as we spend more than we are making. While it only took 14 hours for these parcels to get halfway around the world from China, before they get to their final destination, they now have to face that great unknown, the Irish road network. One of the finest examples of this shambles is the port tunnel. Our most expensive piece of infrastructure is operating at a fraction of capacity because the government has got the pricing all wrong. At a price of €12 to go 4.5 kilometres, they've made it more expensive than it is to catch many flights to London. Michael, I realise here in Dublin there's huge problems, but what's it like driving, let's say, to the likes of Clare, where you're from originally?
Well, we've been in business in Dublin for 20 years, and I remember, when we started coming to Dublin first, sitting in traffic jams on Monday mornings and the likes of Portlaoise and Kinnegad. Now we've got these roads built, and the minute we have a good road implemented, boom, tax to people to use it, We're looking at 3 to 4 tolls to get to Cork City. We're looking at 3 to 4 tolls to get to Galway, and it's really more of the same being pushed down people's necks all the time.
And what about here, the port tunnel? I mean, this must be good for truckers.
This is a super option for truckers. It gets you out onto the north side of the city and away up to the north side of the country. As a trucker, if you want to go to the south side of the city, you must come into the tunnel, use the M50. It's a bit of Russian roulette. You might sit on the M50 for an hour and 10 minutes. You might sit in it for 40 to 50 minutes. You must pay a toll for this privilege. Then you must travel around the full length of the M50 to make a delivery to Sandyford. Do that and do the same again coming back.
Why do you think it is so bad?
We haven't enough experience in big projects that we seem to be jumping into projects, throwing money at these projects, and when they don't work out, we throw more money at the projects to try and fix them again.
Before the parcels coming into the airport can ultimately be delivered, they have to go via the traditional sorting office of An Post in Portlaoise. Thousands of packages end up here every week, where Dylan the sniffer dog is hard at work.
We deal with the domestic anywhere, Leinster, Dublin, and also all of the international. So basically, if you post a parcel anywhere in the world, it'll come in the gate behind you. A lot of the business now is to do with, say, home shopping solutions, which would be internet shopping, a bit of eBay, but mostly it's still catalogue shopping. Anyone that's been in the post office a while will remember the turkeys. Every Christmas, post office was chock-a-block with these big boxes, and sometimes the turkeys weren't in boxes, just had a label on the leg going to the relatives in Britain. So now what we see is, we're seeing a lot of different things due to the diversity of the population, of course.
This is a parcel from China. We might expect to find some cigarettes in their counterfeit handbags. This is a crossbow, food stuff. Now, we'd often know there's meat coming before we see it, like especially during the summertime, because you can smell it before it comes onto the belt. And it's quite horrible when, maggots start falling out of the box onto the floor.
While the men in Portlaoise are a novel indicator of who is living here, back in our own version of Ellis Island, the immigration officers are at the real coalface.
The biggest change, as you can see here, is the sheer numbers, volumes of people that we're involved with. There are 24 million passengers will pass through this airport this year. A short few years ago, that was as low as 5 million. But the makeup of the passengers has changed greatly. We have now people who are categorised as illegal immigrants. And a short few years ago, that was not a category of people who were inclined to come to Ireland. Most people who attempt to enter the state illegally do so for the purpose of trying to gain employment. However, among them are people who are being exploited.
The main nationality that we would have a problem with at the moment are Brazilian people. There's a large number of Brazilian people living and working here legally. Their stories that they're coming on holidays, but the experience is that they don't go back.
Hello. Now, some water. Okay, you speak Portuguese, yeah? Portuguese. You make telephone call? Have you your passport? And have you any baggage? Yeah. Where is your bag? It's here as well. Are you coming here as a tourist, is it? Yeah. For a few days holiday? And that's it then, is it? Okay, one of my colleagues will be with you now shortly. Okay? Thank you.
We have people who will attempt to traffic children into the country, who will attempt to traffic women in for sexual exploitation. The phenomenon of trafficking for labour exploitation is growing.
They'll get off the aircraft and they'll go to the nearest toilet. They'll wait around for a couple of hours. Thanks. And then they'll come up to us maybe 3 or 4 hours after the flight has come in. They've destroyed all their documents, so we've no idea where they came from. They've nothing to identify themselves. So far this year, I think nearly 400 people a month have been refused entry into this airport. So a lot of people have been prevented to come in. A lot of people who shouldn't be let in are getting in, because you can't refuse everybody, you know.
But what is the future for this new open transit nation? Immigrants, by increasing output and paying taxes, are unambiguously positive for the country's growth rate. And all great immigrant societies like America, Canada and Australia have worked on this basis. Up until recently, we were part of this pattern. So to get an idea of what might happen here, it is helpful to look back at our own history as a migrant nation. The experience of the Irish in America has been hugely positive and our achievements have been notable. But when we arrived first in the 1840s, things were very different. So Linda, can you give us a sense of what the Irish, what state they were in when they arrived in New York, let's say in the late 1840s?
Well, the people who were coming into New York at that time were sick, they were destitute, they were poor, they were penniless, and they were coming into communities that were not really ready to absorb that many people in so short a period of time. And they wind up on the shores of, say, in New York, where they're greeted by people, a lot of Irish, who are there to take advantage of them. The men look for any kind of manual labor that they can find. Until, say, 1950, 1945, primarily urban dwellers, the most heavily urban population of any immigrant group.
Which is unusual given where we came from.
Exactly. It's really kind of an irony. Religion was really an important thing for the Irish. The Catholicism was, you could argue, in some ways saved the Irish from being dominated by the nativist population. And by the end of the 19th century, the Irish were basically in control of the Catholic Church in this country.
What's the lesson?
For the Irish, they found their security and their success or their establishment in the community through the church and through politics, where they recognized their concentration and their vast numbers gave them political power. Within 100 years of those first famine migrants coming in, you have an Irishman in the White House, which was kind of extraordinary when you think about it.
The famine Irish may have arrived in America as victims, but they realized very quickly that the key was to get a toehold in society. The main obstacle to that was the black population, who were freed slaves and held all the low-level jobs in construction, domestic service and on the docks. The Irish set about destroying this black economy by working for less and forming trade unions, which banned blacks once we had taken their jobs. In a few short years, the Irish became established as an economic force, even threatening the white Protestant middle classes, while the blacks, in contrast, slid back down the social ladder to the bottom of the pile. The history of immigration is very simple. Workers get displaced. What happens is the immigrants come in, they drive down wages, and they drive up rents. Now this has the effect of displacing those at the very bottom. So whether it's the Irish here in New York in the 1860s, who elbowed out these people, the black Americans, or whether it's happening in the Irish construction sites of immigrants coming in and driving down wages, the message is exactly the same. Some people, with respect to immigration, are clear winners, but some people in society will be clear losers. For the first time ever, this lesson is being learned in Ireland. And it is in the building industry, where 15% of workers are immigrants, that the new reality is being felt.
I find now that there's an influx of labourers, fellas with less overheads. You know, they're just getting jobs, they're coming in, undercutting. Like, you're going to find a lot of Irish people without jobs because they can't compete with the influx of workers, of European workers coming in. Everyone's becoming a subby. Everybody's getting somebody in, and if the Irish lads don't like it, we'll replace them for Polish that will come in and work for less. Most of the fellas I'm working with are buying apartments, buying houses over there. They're big men when they go back to the township or the village, and they're building over there.
You know, I suppose it's no different to what we did in Boston, New York.
That's it. Like, you kind of can't give out because, like, we sent workers everywhere. We had good men that went and worked.
Yeah.
Like, they worked New York, worked London, Australia, everywhere. Worked, and they worked cheaper. But the Irish lads are being cut out because the rates and everything are so high. We've mortgages, we have our own overheads here.
With kids,
so you're being cut out of it completely.
The person who claims that mass immigration will not lead to a significant displacement of the average worker when the economy turns down is being naive. Economics is colourblind. In fact, it doesn't even recognise race. But the lessons from our own economic history are unambiguous. If they stay, a monumental struggle is likely to ensue between Irish workers and immigrants. However, if they leave, house prices will fall quicker, as it is the immigrants who are keeping the market from clapping out altogether. So we've got to ask ourselves whether we want the downturn to be borne by young Irish workers or middle-aged Irish landlords. And that choice will depend on where you find yourself in the generation game. The world is now a dynamic place, and nothing captures this dynamism more than here in Dublin Airport. Now, sometimes we don't realise just how revolutionary the past 5 years has been, nor do we give ourselves credit for how well Ireland has adapted to all this change. But the Botox economy is suffering now. There are some serious problems underneath. And to position ourselves for the future, we've got to reimagine Ireland, we've got to reimagine our country, and we've got to think ahead. Now, if we do this, we will position ourselves extraordinarily well for all the opportunities that this brave new world offers us.